Hey YouTube, JoBoy here. So, the official translation of One Piece chapter 1009 is out. You guys know how we do the video. Talk about the official translation compared to the fan translation, note any difference, talk about literally anything at all, and then round out the video with comments from you guys. So once again, there isn't really any noteworthy translation difference this week. There was some things that were slightly different, not really worth talking about, but you guys know I've waited for so long to be able to do this for a chapter where it's like, this makes a lot of sense. So I'm assuming that at least some of the people that are watching this video have only read the official translation. Well, in the fan translation at the end of the chapter, they included some translation notes which I found to be very interesting. It's actually quite convenient that I didn't talk about them in my initial review. The title of this chapter was Hell, and the translation notes at the end by people who know Japanese said this referenced the Buddhist concept of hell or naraku, as opposed to the usual word jigoku. You guys know I've already hitched myself onto this wagon, but I'm a firm believer that Buddhism is very important to the story of One Piece and permeates a lot of it and a lot of the major concepts from it, and this would indicate that. If you guys are a little bit confused, hell as Westerners know it, and I guess Jikoku essentially means like an eternal place, whereas Naraku is not permanent. Simply put, Buddhists believe in reincarnation, so you go to Naraku for a time, you suffer, and then your soul is reborn in a higher realm. Continuing reading the translation notes, it goes on to say that Naraku can also mean a theater's basement. I just love this. Like, guys, I don't really like Shakespeare, but I can appreciate that Shakespeare was a freaking genius and a master of the English language. This, I mean, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter, but you have to admit how intelligent this is. How you can use a word which encapsulates the tone of the chapter, but also relates back to the overall structure of Wano being a kabuki play. Now, exactly how we're supposed to interpret this is very much more questionable. So, Naraku can also mean a theater's basement. So, are we supposed to assume that there's an implication here of the structure of Wano, the play, being at its basement or lowest point? The energy of the chapter, despite all the damage that Kid took and Zoro took and Luffy took, was that, hey, they just accomplished a major win by separating Kaido and Big Mom and then forcing her to potentially drown. It's almost as if the title is contradicting that. And there's no need to really go deeply into this, but I think that if you're going to take this as truth, then maybe when we read this chapter, when we look back on this chapter a few weeks, months from now, we might think, okay, maybe this isn't as feel good as it maybe seemed at the time. And I say that, but my feel-good wasn't really there reading the chapter live because, they separated Big Mom and Kaido, but there's still a lot of work to be done and they're taking massive damage. Basically, bad things are about to happen. I also didn't say this, but it's been on my mind. I really like how the title connects to the last chapter, where Kid is like, this is like being in hell, and Luffy's like, this is my element. And then we proceed to experience that hell, taking a very small dub at a very great cost. But let's continue reading the translation notes. This is about Ocean Sovereignty, Kaido, and Big Mom's attack. What we chose in the literal translation for the kanji here, as it matches other attacks Big Mom has done in the past. The kana for the attack gives the pronunciation Hakai, which when read aloud sounds like destruction. The first part of Hakai shares a kanji with Haki, auto-referencing both their ambitions and destructive power. So basically in the naming scheme here, it's not only a combination of their power, but their wills. And I know Mr. Morge is going to like this one because he's been a huge proponent for some time now that really willpower, Haki, is strength in the world of One Piece. It's a thing that Luffy possesses more than anybody else, and ultimately why he will rise above everybody else. Ambition is strength, and you'll notice with the strongest character in the world of One Piece, they all possess great ambition of various kinds. This is kind of a side, but it came to mind. I'm really excited to get to know Kizaru, right? So Kizaru is an admiral, and so we presume, he has strong Haki. Even if the admirals are known for their devil fruits, I presume that they're strong willpower, ambition, all of that is relevant to them as well. And that's not really the impression that we're given about Kizaru's character right now. So clearly, I think here we might be missing something, and that something might be and understanding of really what he's all about. Continuing reading the translation notes, this is about 3 realms Ragnarok. The kanji for this attack are, and then here's a kanji, which literally means 3 worlds pulled to hell. Of note, the 3 worlds here refer to the Buddhist concept of the 3 realms, and the hell is the same hell as the chapter title, Naraku. Oda has made an adaptation to the last 3 kanji with his kana, reading Ragu Naraku, or Ragnarok, the apocalypse in Norse mythology. Again here, we almost don't need to say it. The Oda applause is self-evident. This guy out here wordsmithing, it kind of makes me jealous about the Japanese language, frankly, because I think he's literally just, maybe my understanding is off, but he's creating words based on sounds. I wish that you could do that in English. This also makes me really excited for Elbaf, because Elbaf is all about Norse mythology, and this seems to be maybe some kind of, could be tied to it, like, I don't know if this is true, and it doesn't have to be true, but it'd be interesting if this was some sort of very, very low-key foreshadowing of Kaido and some history with Elbaf. But I want to bring this up, just so I play on the safe side here. Both of the terms that are mentioned here as being based on Buddhism might also be based on Hinduism, because many of the teachings and words overlap, Buddhism having been created from Hinduism. Also, I just want to point out that with these particular attacks and their emphasis on, hell, the 3 worlds, things of this nature, it has a very spiritual context to it. And we'd been talking recently about, what are some spiritual aspects of the current arc? When we were talking about Odin, obviously Odin was revealed to be Khandro, but there's still other things going on here, like, for instance, the Fire Festival celebrating the dead. So I wonder if this is an intentional connection or not. Basically, Kid says it's like we're in hell, and Luffy says, hell is where I operate. And then there's a spiritual aspect to the arc itself, which makes that even more poignant. Onigashima literally becomes hell. Wow! Mind blown, right? Oda level foreshadowing. But yeah, guys, let's get into the comments. I'm gonna say this before anyone else. If Shanks or Rayleigh had lost fruit, they could move whole islands. There's 2 levels of this comment that I like. The first and probably more obvious interpretation is that if it takes, if somebody has a certain amount of haki and that allows them to deflect devil fruit abilities, essentially, then if you possess strong haki, like for instance if Law had Roger level haki, would he be able to teleport or cut stronger enemies? Basically is the reason why Law can't use his devil fruit ability on Big Mom and Kaido, because they have stronger willpowers than him. And so if that were true, if he had stronger willpowers than they did, would he be able to do this? It has the potential just to be absurdly broken, because his devil fruit is kinda cheesy. If you could apply this ability to literally anybody, eventually you get strong enough to the point that nobody can really even fight you. Seriously, if Law could teleport anybody, there comes a point in time, especially if with observation haki and certain things, nobody would even be able to touch him. And this sort of leads into the second speculation that this comment hints at. Does your willpower, does your haki also influence the strength of your devil fruit? That is to say, if Law had stronger haki, would his room be even larger? Essentially, the question is what prevents Law from moving something as large as an entire island? If Rayleigh or Roger had his devil fruit, would a feat like that be easier because their haki determines the strength of the fruit? Next comment, Zoro just showed that he is equal to Luffy in every way by blocking this. I doubt any of the other supernovas could have done this. Just insane. So I know that some people aren't going to like this, but I do want to tap the brakes a little bit on this notion. You need to keep this in mind. This is canon to the story. It's essentially been stated that Zoro right now has a power boost with Enma. The level of this is uncertain, but clearly Enma is doing something. People didn't say this same thing about Luffy in Thriller Bark when he acquired the form Nightmare Luffy, right? Because you just intuitively understand that there's something very particular about this, which doesn't truly reflect Luffy's strength in this moment. Now, I do want to be completely clear here that there is at least reason to speculate that the Zoro situation is different from something like Nightmare Luffy, Because it could be that Zoro's strength here is very much dependent on the quality of sword that he possesses. For instance, we expect that Zoro would get stronger if he had one of the 12 supreme grade swords. Enma isn't one of those swords, but it has been put on a pedestal higher than any other sword that Zoro has wielded. So he may simply be stronger because the sword is stronger, but that's not the same as Nightmare Luffy, because if he continues to carry the sword, then, he's still that strong. Potentially even stronger if he turns the blade black, which is kind of suggested is likely going to happen. So in this case, it might compare more favorably to Luffy's gear forms, like Gear 4th. But there's something specific about this situation which leads me away from being all in on this, and it's essentially Kaido and Big Mom, one of the two, I can't remember, essentially saying that Enma was emanating foreign haki, foreign willpower, Odin's willpower. If you guys remember back to the chapter in which this happened, I tied this back to something Kawamatsu said, which was that in a war, it's a samurai's practice to pick up the swords of their fallen comrades, and that by using their swords, they would be strengthened. So it ties the strength of Enma very much to this particular battle. Zoro has effectively picked up Odin's sword. He's fallen in battle, and because of that, he is even stronger. Enma is even stronger now than it would be in any other situation. But to bring this around full circle, this is just my opinion. I'm honestly sharing my opinion. I think this comment says that, this proves that Zoro is an equal to Luffy. I'm not certain that it does that. It almost puts Zoro on a pedestal above Luffy, and that's not a new thing, because everyone's attacking Kaido earlier on in the fight, and then Zoro goes and Big Mom's like, whoa, that is not a normal sword, Kaido, you need to dodge this. At that moment, I thought to myself, Zoro's not as strong as Luffy right now. Zoro is stronger than Luffy. For me, this chapter was much the same. I don't think that any of the other Supernova, aside from Zoro, would have been able to stop Big Mom and Kaido's attack for even a split second. So if you take away the advantage that Enma clearly is giving Zoro right now, then you get back to, maybe Luffy and Zoro are on the same plane, which is, truthfully guys, something that I have believed for a long time anyway. I really don't think that Luffy is stronger than Zoro, and if he is, it's not by much. But the truth is that Enma right now is providing an advantage to Zoro that nobody else has in this fight. So this will continue to be a debatable topic. There's nothing that is absolutely definitive here, in my opinion, because you can't know just how much stronger Zoro is, and frankly, we haven't seen Zoro go all out during the time skip until now, and now he has a huge power boost, which might not carry over, so we're left in power scaling purgatory. Next comment, maybe Zoro will reach a point where he becomes dangerously strong in his highly damaged state. He walks the path of suffering. He will grow as a threat. I would say that right now, Zoro in this arc, I'm reminded most of his fight with Mr. One. That's the vibes that this fight gives me for Zoro. And in that fight, when he sustained tremendous amounts of damage, it was after that he grew as a fighter. And this isn't something that's unusual. This is a rule that Oda has created for One Piece. It's during the toughest fights when your haki grows. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. Next comment, friendly reminder that all the fights are almost finished and still, Sanji hasn't yet to find his opponent. This is something that I brought up a few chapters ago that was just kind of intriguing to me. I mean, Luffy and Zoro and the rest of the group have been fighting forever. Most everybody has been fighting for an extremely long time, and Sanji has yet to actually fight anybody. He had an encounter with King, he then ran and protected Luffy for a little bit, and then he got drawn to Black Maria, didn't really fight her, just was sort of used as bait for a bit and then ran away, and still Sanji has yet to begin his fight, and we're already at this stage on the roof. I still don't believe this, but I want to believe this, but there is at least some potential that the fight concludes without Sanji having fought anybody. Now, I know that a lot of people have issues with that. A lot of Sanji fans in particular have issues with that, but here's my logic, right? So I still expect a kind of Mr. Prince moment for Sanji in this arc, even if he doesn't fight anybody. Maybe he'll play a very crucial role in doing something strategic towards the end to save everybody's skin. That could absolutely happen. But at the same time, you have this layer of doubt, which exists within Sanji's mind after the arc is over, if he didn't fight anybody, which is that I could have done more, I failed. And that's how you reach a beautiful and dramatic character moment for Sanji and the entire crew. In order to bring out the most from Sanji emotionally, you have to bring him down as far down as he can go. You thought that might have been in Whole Cake Island, but maybe Oda wasn't done. Now this speculation could very easily become irrelevant in just a couple chapters, right? What if Sanji goes and encounters Jack because he was looking for the scabbards? Maybe he goes to save Momonosuke and then encounters Queen or King and has a fight there. And this is totally meaningless. Absolutely, that could happen. But I do think that it is very interesting how far we've come without Sanji really doing much of significance. The door is open. Next comment, the Big Mom Kaido team attack reminded me a lot of the attack Dory and Brogy used on the giant goldfish in Little Garden. There's actually quite a lot of similarities between that attack and this attack. One that's been pointed out to me is that Dory and Brogy were formerly on the same crew. They were allies, and then a disagreement led to them fighting for 100 years. Kaido and Big Mom's story is actually very similar. Formerly on the same crew, potentially some sort of disagreement set them at odds against each other for the next 40 years. Finally, in this arc and in Elbaf teaming up, combining their strength. In this case though, the thing which most intrigues me about the parallel is the level of disagreement. Between Dory and Brogy, their disagreement was incredibly minor, like something to be laughed about later. With Big Mom and Kaido, I've said this for a long time, I think philosophically they should be at odds, like incredibly at odds with each other. And so I kind of see the disagreement being more serious, although forgotten in the moment. But of course, here I'm thinking of it more on grand scale, like what does Kaido stand for, what does Big Mom stand for? The true parallel here could be a lot smaller, like which started Kaido and Big Mom's separation and their fight. In the case of Dory and Brogy, it was a singular event, not what they stood for. In the case of Big Mom and Kaido, you gotta think about something like God Valley. Like, did something happen in God Valley? Kaido and Big Mom took opposite stances on something, which is sort of the beginning here. The way that I imagine this in my mind, based on how I understand Big Mom, is Big Mom maybe wasn't loyal to Rocks, whereas Kaido, I just feel like Kaido would have been more loyal. That's my gut feeling. And maybe this ties back into, and this allows Oda to lead into, Kaido's insane trust issues. I think very clearly he was betrayed. There was some major betrayal in the past which makes him believe that all pirate alliances end that way. If you'll notice, Big Mom doesn't share that philosophy. I don't believe so, because she forms her crew through pirate alliances, marriages. At least that's a big part. Whereas Kaido seems to basically only accept members of his crew of people that he has crushed, defeated. And he really doesn't treat them like normal crew members. It's almost like he believes at some point they're either gonna fail, die, or betray him. So it's okay if we kill members of my crew. It didn't matter, I'm just doing it. I'm betraying them before they betray me. And there's, rising and falling within Kaido's crew is how it's structured. The strongest survive. There's very little true loyalty. And he's already been suspicious of Big Mom, basically telling Big Mom, hey, I know that you're interested in my road poneglyph, already figured that one out, it's not yet time for you to betray me. Maybe like she has already done in the past. But I'm not 100% solid on this, because another thing that we know is that Big Mom saved Kaido's life. So, that story is going to be relevant too. I mean, if you want to combine that with this idea in some sort of interesting way, maybe the whole crew was about to lose, and Big Mom basically took Kaido and saved his life and forced him to run away. Which could also be the start of the disagreement. Kaido wanted to stay and fight, maybe even die for Rocks, and then he got a cold dose of reality of the pirate world. That would make Big Mom's line to Kaido, sort of lording it over his head, hey, I saved your life, you owe me, almost ironic. Because Kaido doesn't see what she did the same as she sees it, which honestly fits Big Mom's character really well. She's not a great listener. Next comment. So, one thing I noticed. Law said he couldn't teleport Big Mom and Kaido due to their overwhelming haki. Right after Law teleported the group away from the insane block by Zoro, Oda made sure that someone said, "Where's Straw Hat?" We know Oda loves to use subtext a lot, and I doubt Law left Luffy there on purpose. Could this be Oda's way of hinting at Luffy having overwhelming haki on the level of Kaido and Big Mom? If this is the case, this is incredibly well spotted. And finally, we have the last comment. To me, this chapter solidified the idea that Kaido's journey ends at Wano. The supernova getting to face Kaido without Big Moms tells me that the battle will at least have a conclusion. And I don't foresee the Strats losing now. After 100 chapters and heading towards 2 full years, the Strats losing after this long of an arc, it's too anticlimactic. There are too many other important stories Oda has left to tell. Definitely get the vibe Kaido loses and Big Mom and Luffy scatter because of the world government, and the story heads to Elbaf, possibly with Big Mom chasing Luffy yet again. You know, I think that I get the same vibe. I get the vibe that Kaido's story does end here in Wano. I know that I've kind of been a leaf on the wind in regards to this. There's obviously a lot of things that could potentially happen, but I will say this, and I've said this from almost the start of the arc, and I still believe it now. My headcanon for how this arc goes is that the one to kill Kaido is going to be Blackbeard. That's how I feel. I think that the supernova up on the roof are going to soften Kaido up, damage him, leave him to the point that if he encounters somebody his equal, another fresh fighter such as Blackbeard, that fight is no contest. I do still think that Big Mom's story though ends here in Wano as well. Some way, somehow. She's still one of the most interesting characters. But of course, Oda is the captain of this ship, and if he wants Big Mom to go to Elbaf and chase the Strats, then that's, he'll do what he wants to do. Again, talking about the idea from a few comments ago that Big Mom betrayed Rocks and ran away in the middle of their fight, and that's what has created Kaido's worldview, it would be a parallel for Big Mom to essentially do the same thing in this battle. If the world government shows up or Blackbeard shows up and all these things happen, for her to do the same thing, and then immediately, no matter what I think right now, I'm like, okay, I'm sold on this idea. You've foreshadowed it, you've led the story up to this point for Big Mom to do something in character, and so I'll love it both ways. But I think that you need to keep in mind that Oda brought Big Mom's crew here for a reason, that eventually they're going to show up and they're going to do something. I think that we need some payoff for that story. Of course, that payoff might just end up being a joke, but, that's fitting. But I do think that there's going to be some sort of payoff, and Oda has segmented this. So, when we were in Wano, we saw certain characters, Big Mom pirates, fight, so we know how they fight, like Katakuri. Then Oda saves characters such as Smoothie for the arc in which they're going to be new, to give us new and interesting dynamics, see these devil fruits in action on panel for the first time, things that we're excited for. So if the Big Mom pirates reach that point where they actually join the battle, then I will be even more convinced that the Big Mom pirates story ends here. But we haven't reached that point yet, so anything's possible. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I had to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.